self-care does give us all of these things, right? The possibility of accessing a lot of these things. Now, I want to ask you a question. Why don't we do it as often as we need to? If we get so much of these benefits, why don't we do it as much as we should? Excitement feels right. Lighter, yeah. All right, so I'm sure you've done self-care pose, which is one of our main ones. I do it of all of you guys know that we're talking about this toolkit, this embodied toolkit, and these are 26 poses. By far, the one I use the most in with my clients is self-care. So let's just do a bit of that. So I'm gonna give you the instructions, but feel free to modify it a bit. So left hand or right hand goes through wherever your belly feels wherever the waist is supposed to go. And then the other hand, my right hand in this case, goes across my chest and over through a bit, holding the shoulder. My head is gonna come a bit towards the hand. And notice what this feels like for you. From the connection, feeling the contact of your hands and your body, or the slowing downness quality of this pose. Notice what comes up through the body. Doesn't have to look a certain way. These poses give us information about us. It gives us a moment to start practicing. What does it feel to start getting close to me? It doesn't necessarily have to be a good, positive experience right away. It can feel good and soothing and warm and like, oh yes, this is what I've been eating. But it can also feel scary, or this goes against all of my beliefs where I should be defended and working and busy. Whatever experience you're feeling, allow it to be present. Observe that. Where do you need more of this in your life? Taking one breath, allow yourself to come back to the screen. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to feel good. These poses have two main functions. One is insight into my patterns, and the other, of course, is the possibility to start practicing that particular skill, in this case, connection with self and self-care. Yeah. All right. So this sounds beautiful, and this is a great practice, but of course, the point of this is to bring it into our lives and actually doing the practice, right? Because how many of you, or I can only feel centered and calm when I'm in my yoga class or when I'm doing a retreat, I am outside of my usual environment. And while we can, of course, acknowledge that some environments are trickier than others, we want to be able to embody at least some part of those things into our lives, right? That's why the practice of the embodied application of this is super important. So we're gonna go and do a pose. That's also one of my favorites. But like I said, the one I do most is self-care for sure. So you can do this pose standing, but you are also free to do this while sitting down, because it's a very easy pose to do while sitting down. Your feet are about 1 meter, which is about 3 feet sort of wide. The front is slightly, actually both knees are slightly bent so that you have like a wide base. Think of the thickness of a tree, of the trunk of a tree. And from there, we're going to bring our hands up and round. I'm going to stand on the side so that you see my arms. So they are rounded. And notice that my hands are not clasping together. They are about 1 hand apart. So this is care pose. So first off, notice if how we come into care is from the, okay, I should be caring. So my shoulders are tight, my arms are tight because I should be strong for others. Right? Or notice if your arms tend to go wider, even though I said the instruction of one hand apart. And you're like, yes, I will take care of everybody. Everyone fits in here, right? This mother, grandmother embodiment of, yes, I bring it on. I'm ready to give a lot. So if you're doing too much, maybe bring it closer and notice where your hands are. Or if you're holding too tight, maybe loosen up a bit and notice how that feels. So notice how this care applies for others in your life. Do I feel comfortable here? Is this familiar? When I think of care for others, am I like, yeah, sure. I can do it. I feel comfortable. I feel happy. I feel willing, even heard. So now that we're on the other side, let's tune into caring. But now for myself. How do I feel when I come into this pose? And what I'm caring for is myself, my well-being, my mental health, my physical health, my energy levels, my vulnerability, my dreams, my goals. What's my relationship to that? Is it like, yeah, sure, I mean, I would like that, but it's okay if we don't. Or is it, it's mine, nobody even get closer to it. It's nice and protected here, right? Maybe you're like here, right? And instead of being in the center where we're working, you're leaning back a bit, right? Yeah, sure, I'll put my dreams out there. Feels nice and open and relaxed, right? So what's my relationship to care for myself? That we know all of the benefits. All of the ones that you mentioned are in here. My resilience, my not going into burnout, my being my best cuddly version of myself for my partner, something like that. All of those sweet things are in there. But we usually don't prioritize that, right? So what do I need to say? You stay out of this sphere. Is it that extra thing that always seems to show up in my to-do list at the end of the day? What do I need to keep out of this space where my well-being is held? And when this is hard, I can tune back in. How does it feel to tune back into what I am protecting, to what I am caring for? And from that place, I am keeping that out. I'm not saying no to my boss for the sake of saying no to my boss, but for the sake of what's happening here, what I'm cultivating here. What about internal boundaries? We mentioned that boss, that to-do list, those are external stuff, right? But what about internal stuff that I have to put boundaries on? So the constant scrolling on social media, it's hurting my mental health. It's hurting my, I don't know, feeling pressured because I'm not where I'm supposed to be professional, stuff like that. So putting a boundary to myself. Stop following people that don't look like me and keep pressuring me to look like them, stuff like that, right? Those are boundaries that I choose for myself. Stopping that critical voice that's sometimes very harsh, right? Internal stuff. All right. So try that out. What am I caring for when I put things outside of the sphere, when I protect that? All right. Let's shake that off and come back. How was that? Insights, revelations, stuff that you like to share one of these poses. But this one gets to practice from for those of you who like tarot or like these archetypes of the Empress, right? It's the one who decides what's the quality that I want to conserve inside of my life. And sort of like my army or my team is going to take care of that. And that's another skill set that we can develop, right? But this is sort of like comes from the deeper decision of what I want to have closer to me. Yeah. Unexpectedly easy to settle boundaries, Christina. Thank you. One of the ways that I really love to practice boundaries is not starting from the no outside, but from the yes inside, because that's where the goal is, right? When I take this work into, let's say, relationships, I say when we practice self-care and we practice it enough that we become familiar with the embodiment of feeling respected, feeling heard, feeling loved, and feeling at peace with myself, then it's easier when someone comes along and disrupts that state, versus when I'm constantly in my body feeling disrespected, feeling abrupt, feeling harsh. Somebody comes along and I'll just roll with it because it doesn't create a contrast in my embodiment, right? So cultivating the yes and the embodiment that I want to create helps me make those decisions for boundaries much better. And we're going to be needing less of those. What's the list of the red flags that I should be looking for in a relationship? Because that's the mind or the focus on the external versus from the internal of, hey, this is what I want to cultivate. I want to feel respected and I want to feel peaceful. And I know how that feels and I know how to recognize it. And I know how to handle a situation that doesn't feel like that. Yeah. So the more that we can practice this self-care and start creating that embodiment of feeling that connection to self, feeling that I got myself, that I can be in good terms with myself. And the more we practice it, the more we create that embodied state. These poses are sort of like gateways for those embodiments. Focusing on saying yes to yourself rather focusing on saying no to the external people and events. Yeah.